I'm LDE, and this is the state of Broken Arrow. So Broken Arrow, a little too little, too late. The honeymoon period for Broken Arrow is officially over. Well, it launched in June 2025 with tremendous promise of 30,000 plus concurrent players. A fresh take on a modern RTS has evolved into a frustrating experience plagued by fundamental problems. 4 months of radio silence, broken promises, and deteriorating player trust have brought us to October 2025, where Still Balalaka has finally announced meaningful changes in patch 1.0.11. But is it enough? And more importantly, why did it take this long? So, firstly, the communication breakdown. For months, the developers were essentially dark. After patch 1.09 dropped in August to overwhelmingly negative reception, 21% of positive reviews on launch day, we received sporadic updates that felt more like damage control than genuine engagement. Patch 1.0.10 arrived in late September with minimal fanfare and failed to address the game's core problems. Now, a week late from their promised timelines for the dev blogs, we get the 1.011 dev blog promise. Let's be clear, this announcement is in progress. They're acknowledging the cruise missile spam problem. They're admitting Russian factions have higher win rates, and they're implementing the easy anti-cheat. These are steps in the right direction. But here's a question that needs asking, which is, why did it take 4 months of players' exodus and negative reviews to get here? The cruise missile spam has been complained about since launch. The faction imbalance has been documented by the community with win rate statistics for months. The cheating crisis has been rampant since June, and even before that, during the open betas, there was cheating problems. And none of this is new information, so why are we only now seeing meaningful action? Where are the weekly dev blogs we were promised? Where's the roadmap? Where's the faster-paced communication approach announced in July, which materialized into one dev blog every few weeks with vague platitudes? This update is welcomed, but it doesn't erase months of neglect. So the cruise missile problem, it's acknowledged, finally. So let's give credit where it's due. Still Balalaka has finally and officially acknowledged the cruise and ballistic missiles are a problem.
Leave me alone!
The dev blog states they want to reduce the prevalence of cruise missiles and ballistic missiles to refocus the fight more onto the front line. This is exactly what the community has been screaming about for months. Russian coastal decks fielding absurdly cheap cruise missile units with the Tu-22 bombers, launching 3 missiles in rapid succession, turned every match into a point-and-click completion simulator. The fundamental problem was simple. There was no reliable counterplay. But we still don't know the specifics. Are they increasing costs, reducing availability, fixing the client-side networking issue that makes the interception unreliable? The dev blog promises full changelog when we release the update, but the community deserves concrete details before the patch drops, not after. And here are the fixes they still haven't mentioned. So air defense systems still need target priority controls. Players should be able to choose what their AA intercepts. Is it seed missiles or cruise missiles versus aircraft, or a threat-based prioritization? Right now, AA systems engage automatically, meaning your Patriot might waste missiles on a reconnaissance drone when a cruise missile sails right past you. Air Superiority Fighters should be able to intercept cruise missiles with air-to-air missiles. This would create strategic counterplay and give ASF a purpose beyond the first minute of the game. Right now, once the air superiority is established, fighters become dead weight, except for air recon, which they're barely used for, unless if you're in the higher tiers. And even still, it's usually one person kind of doing it. Right. So, I digress. Intercepting cruise missiles should count towards kill score at the supply cost value. When your AA shoots down a cruise missile, you should receive points equivalent to what the missile supply cost is. This would award defensive play, creating accurate scoreboard representation, and make missile spam less attractive when attackers see their ordnance contributing to the enemy score instead. And the cheating crisis, better late than never. The implementation of easy anti-cheat is welcome news, but let's not pretend this solves everything. Still, Balalaka has claimed to have banned over 5,000 accounts over 4 months, yet cheating remained rampant because of the game's networking architecture, which makes it trivially easy to exploit. Here's a technical reality that easy anti-cheat doesn't fully address. Broken Arrow uses real-time synchronization that accepts modified client data instead of a server-side determinism. A cheater can alter unit statistics on the machine, and those changes propagate to all players. Every other modern RTS, from Red Alert 3 to the entire Wargame series, prevents this through desynchronization that kicks modded clients. Easy anti-cheat will help catch some cheaters, yes, but until the underlying network model is fixed with server-side determinism, the game remains vulnerable to exploits that anti-cheat software can't fully prevent. The game's desync issues also mean legitimate players still appear to be cheating. Units become invisible, damage doesn't register due to high ping, and the game's desync is so bad that players can be seconds behind the entire game compared to everybody else. Without replays or spectator mode, which is still missing, you can't verify if someone is actually cheating or if the game just broke. They need to add a basic UI feature, which doesn't make sense that it's not in the game currently, which is that the report button should be functional in the post-match screen. In the last seconds of the game, you're not thinking about reporting, you're focused on gameplay. It's after the match that you have time to file reports, so why does this function still disappear when you need it the most? Now we have missing core features, still no replays, and still no spectator mode. In October 2025, 4 months after launch, we still don't have replays or spectator mode. This isn't a nice-to-have feature, it's essential infrastructure for competitive RTS. How are we supposed to improve without reviewing matches? How can tournament organizers create compelling content? How do we definitively prove cheating? The August frequently asked questions promised replays in about 2 months, with spectator modes coming first. September came and went, and October came and went. The 1.011 dev blog mentions Allied AI bots will be next, but says nothing about replays or spectating. This is unacceptable for a game positioning itself as a competitive RTS. So we have missing content as well with maps and single player. The dev blog teases a small surprise for Halloween and promises a big event sometime in November with the goal of showcasing the future and longer term plans for Broken Arrow. Great, but what about right now? The game desperately needs new maps. The current rotation is stale, and maps like Kaliningrad need complete reworks. More maps than just Kaliningrad, but Kaliningrad being one of the biggest outliers. An easy win would be to take the top portion of Oil Rush and making it into a new map, Oil City or something similar. The asset exists, it's there. It will provide tactical variety without any massive developmental resources. Most importantly, we need robust single-player content with deck building. The campaign is shallow with zero replayability. Something equivalent to Warno's Army Generals mode would be a strategic layer with persistent campaigns, deck customization, and meaningful progression. Would keep players engaged and provide content for those who don't want to have that constant competitive stress. Allied AI bots is a start, but it's not a substitute for actual content. And then we have visual regression, the aircraft icon disasters. The recent patches introduced ugly redesigned aircraft icons to make the tactical feel of the game worse. The community has been vocal. It's not about the size of it, it's the aesthetic. It's ugly. This might seem minor, but it's the emblematic of a broader problem. Steel Balilaka makes changes without the adequate community consultation that ignores feedback when players object. And then, to be fair as well, there's also the new icons that came in that were beautiful, like the combat engineers was amazing. So it shows that the team can create amazing icons, but then they chose to use these horribly ugly icons to differentiate similar aircraft when they could have done it in a different way to where it doesn't look ugly, right? So moving on to balance nightmares, officially acknowledged and solutions to be determined. The devlog finally admits what the community has known for months. Russian decks have a higher win rate than American decks, and it's by not a small margin. So thank you for acknowledging reality. Now let's talk about the specific problems that created this mess. Russian advantages, their counter APS missiles. Russia gets CAPS, equivalent missiles, that bypass active protection systems, while the U.S. relies on standard ATGMs that get eaten by Russian APS. This creates asymmetric advantages where the Russian tanks shrug off U.S. anti-tank fire, while Russian missiles punch through U.S. APS and their armor as well. The 57mm autocannon dominance, the BRM 3K57 and the T15 Boomerang 57 mount autocannons with superior penetration, significantly outperforming comparable US 30mm systems. These weapons shred helicopters, obliterate IFVs, and provide effective anti-armor capabilities at a fraction of the cost. So they also have cheap, effective IFVs. Russians' mechanized infantry gets access to heavily armored, fast IFVs with superior firepower at competitive prices. The T-15 Boomerang has tank-level armor and can equip the Afghan APS with 57mm cannons. The U.S. disadvantages: weak IFVs. The American IFVs consistently underperform in comparison. Strykers and Bradley's variants struggle to compete with the Russian counterparts in survivability and killing power. The Bushmaster cannon is inadequate. The 25 mic and the 30 mic versions of the Bushmaster do insignificant damage despite respectable penetration stats on paper. Players report Bushmasters hitting armor and dealing minimal damage because they're hitting lower cage values. Lower cage armor values instead of penetrating. The damage model doesn't reward these weapons appropriately. And forced pylons. U.S. aircrafts are saddled with mandatory pylon configurations that inflate costs without the proportional combat effectiveness. Russian aircraft get more flexible loadouts at better prices. The dev blog says that they want to reduce the win rate disparity between USA and Russia and rebalance the interest between Russian tanks and mechanized specializations. That's the goal, but where are the actual changes? We don't know until the patch drops, and that's frustrating. The community has provided detailed feedback on exactly what needs fixing. Will any of it be addressed? And here's what should be in that patch. Add CAPS, or counter APS, capabilities to U.S. platforms. If Russia gets a CAPS missile, the U.S. needs them too. TOW Humvees and Airborne should have the access to the TOW 2 Bravo Aero Gen 3 at a premium cost. These are high-risk, high-reward platforms. They die after 1 to 2 shots, have no armor, and require perfect positioning. The risk-reward is built in. We need to fix the Bushmaster damage calculation. These cannons should reward accurate fire and not feel like pea shooters against any armor. We should reduce the Russian 57mm autocannon availability or increase its costs. These weapons are too effective for their price points. And then remove forced pylons or reduce U.S. aircraft costs proportionally. If U.S. planes are forced to pay premium costs, they should get premium performance. The cheap spam meta. The dev blog acknowledges cruise missile spam, but what about the broader issue? All the balance problems converged into a dominant strategy: cheap unit spam with cruise missile support. Why invest in combined arms tactics when you flood the map with low-cost IFVs, overwhelm APS charges, and delete survivors with missiles? This creates gameplay that's fundamentally low risk, high reward for attackers, and no win for defenders. There's no tactical depth when the answer is spam more missiles, and there's no satisfaction when you're winning by clicking cruise missiles on supply trucks. There's no counterplay when defensive preparations evaporate to missile barrages that you cannot intercept. Will patch 1.011 fix this? We'll see. But the dev blog doesn't inspire confidence that they understand the full scope of the problem. Then we have Special Forces and Airborne, which is still missing modern equipment. Patch 1.0.11 doesn't mention Special Forces improvements, so the problems still persist of the Green Beret squad size, travesty. An Operational Detachment Alpha, or ODA, consists of 12 highly trained specialists, and 18 Alpha, the Warrant Officer, and 18 Zulu, 18 Fox, 2 18 Bravos, 2 18 Charlies, 2 18 Deltas, and 2 18 Echoes. This is the foundational soft structure. In Broken Arrow, they get 4 guys. A 4-man squad with 20 health that die instantly if they're caught in the open. The counter argument for this is, well, Delta Force is a 13-man squad in game, so making Green Berets 12-man units would make the SOCOM infantry too strong. That is exactly the point. SOCOM infantry should be the absolute best infantry in the game. It is the Special Operations Command. It's the premier Tier 1 and Tier 2 Special Operations Forces. Right now, SOCOM's infantry is worse than Airborne's. The most elite Special Operations Forces in the world are worse than standard Airborne infantry. And that's me saying that as a actual Airborne infantryman. It is ridiculous. If having 12-man Green Berets and 13-man Delta Force makes SOCOM infantry too strong, then that's working as intended. SOCOM should have the best infantry. That's the specialization's identity. If it doesn't dominate infantry combat, then what is the point? You're trading armor, artillery, and combined arms flexibility for mediocre infantry that costs more than airborne troops. Make Green Berets 12-man squads, make SOCOM infantry elite. That's not a balance problem, that's a proper specialization design. Airborne equipment gaps. So the airborne specialization is stuck with outdated equipment. The Hawkeye artillery system is obsolete. Replace it with the ISV mortar system or a Humvee mortar trailer for tactical flexibility. Add ISV variants for 50-point ISVs with 81mm mortars and a 70-point ISV with 120mm mortars would give Airborne proper mobile fire support matching their operational doctrine. Airborne needs infantry recon teams, whether it's LRS, which is long-range surveillance, or Airborne recon. The spec desperately needs dedicated infantry reconnaissance. Right now, Airborne relies entirely on the vehicle recon and the snipers for combat observation, right? Every other major spec gets infantry recon, so why not Airborne? Airborne inconsistencies. F-35A Beast Mode should be in the game for the Airborne. Keep the stealthy F-35A in SOCOM for covert strikes and give the Airborne the F-35A Beast Mode with external pylons. Beast Mode sacrifices stealth for significantly increased ordnance, exactly what Airborne needs for close air support. This makes tactical sense, provides specialization distinction, and gives Airborne firepower without making SOCOM's stealth variant redundant. It also solves the problem of having 4 F-35As being too strong, because then they're stuck in a SOCOM Airborne deck. So if you want 4 of those F-35s, you have to choose SOCOM plus, Marines or Airborne. But you won't get the A's, you'll get the B's if you do Marines. Anyways, so where's the M75 Valor, right? The Bell V280 Valor, if you want to call it that, is being fielded as the future long-range air assault platform. This is the helicopter that will define airborne operations or Regression air assault operations for the next generation. If we're including modern Russian equipment, why isn't cutting-edge U.S. airborne aviation in the game as well? It's cool, and it's new, and it's refreshing, so it's added into the game, right? Moving on to Stryker for a little bit. So we have 2 things with Stryker. Where's the Stryker ICV Alpha 1? The improved Dragoon variant mounting javelins with the 30 Mike autocannons would give Stryker formations actual anti-armor punch without fragile options otherwise, right? They have it on the Recon variant. There's no reason why you can't just push it over to the infantry variants as well. It won't make it oppressive, and if it is, you can always just tune the numbers down later on. But with all US specs being very low in win rates, it shouldn't be a problem trying to buff all of the specs, right? On the same note here with Stryker, the MML inconsistency is that given that the MML has 15 missiles but cannot ripple fire, does not make sense. It's an inconsistency. Any platform that has over 10 missiles can ripple fire in the game, so there's no reason why this one cannot. Special Forces vehicles gaps. So the Special Forces lack appropriate vehicles. Where are the dedicated soft transport options beyond the basic Humvees? Where are MRAPs for transportation and not just recon? And where's the Max Pro? The Max Pro MRAP saw extensive use by US forces, including special operations, and it provides protected transport for infantry squads. This is exactly what SF needs moving through hostile territory, yet Broken Arrow only includes the MATV in recon configurations. The Warpig mystery. The Warpig doesn't have supply carrying capability despite having supply vehicle voice lines. This vehicle is clearly designed or intended to carry supplies. The audio exists, yet the functionality isn't there. Why? We don't know, because the developers do not communicate details. Fletcher underperformance. So the Fletcher is underwhelming for its cost and its role. It lacks a punch to justify points investment and doesn't have enough tactical utility. A simple stat buff improved anything would make it better or even potentially viable. We're also missing non-standard tactical vehicles. Where the other non-standard soft vehicles, special operations forces also use modified civilian vehicles, up-armored transports, and specialized light vehicles that aren't in standard catalogs, if you will. These would add tactical variety and better represent how SF operates. Going back to SOCOM, but with the Airborne as well, the Transport Humvee smoke grenade absence. Why don't Transport Humvees have smoke grenades when platform Humvees do? This makes no sense from a realism or gameplay perspectives. The Transport Humvees moving infantry into the front line need smoke for survivability, and they also need it if they're trying to do like a Kazovac to retrograde and bring the casualties to the CCP or the supply point, whatever the fuck you want to call it. So weapons platforms engaging from range get smoke, but vehicles driving into harm's way don't. Right? This is a simple fix that would improve the infantry gameplay across the board. And now we have the Rangers versus Airborne, staying within the Airborne SOCOM area. While patch 1.010 increased Airborne to 9-man squads, it didn't address the fundamental problem, which is Rangers are still weaker than Airborne troops. This is backwards. Rangers are elite light infantry with more rigorous selection and training, and they should outperform standard Airborne forces. The specific problem is Rangers that RAWs lag behind Airborne NGSW with MAWs. The Rangers get 84mm heat with 400mm penetration at 500 meters range, while the Airborne NGSW gets 84mm tandem with 600mm penetration at 600 meters range. That 150mm penetration difference is the gap between reliably killing medium armor and struggling against it. Patch 1.0.10 gave Rangers a small buff, upgrading rifles from M4A1 Mod 2s to M4A1 URGIs with a 0.3 additional damage buff, but this doesn't solve the core issue. Developers acknowledge this unit suffers from redundancy with airborne squads, but their solution was a marginal rifle buff instead of addressing the anti-armor gap, or any other gap that they can do. They can make Rangers faster than standard airborne. They can make them have more smokes. They can make them, more resilient to incoming fire, anything. But they just ignore that and then moved on. Ranger mods should function as a better SMAW, but for SOCOM, right? Give Rangers mods with flèche rounds for anti-infantry capability. This provides tactical flexibility beyond anti-armor. It's realistic because Rangers actually get that in real life, and it's good for balancing. The Moz squad should also have the NGSW platform because the team inherently should play defensively, providing overwatch and fire support rather than aggressive close-range assaults. Rangers should be better than regular airborne troops. That's not an opinion, it's organizational reality. Rangers undergo additional selection, have more specialized training, and operate as a premier light infantry force. The community has repeatedly requested this. Give Rangers either the Moz upgrade to match elite status, or provide tactical advantages like smoke grenades, better optics, improved mobility, but right now they're overpriced and outclassed by units that they should dominate. Marines still undermined and under-equipped. The Marines CAT, or the Combined Armor Teams, need to return to their old capabilities, either reduce their price point significantly or give back the Mark 19 grenade launchers. The CAT teams are supposed to provide mobile firepower and anti-armor support for the Marine rifle companies. Right now, they're overpriced for what they deliver. We need to reduce this raw price if we're not getting the top attack back. This raw used to be competitive, now it's expensive for limited capability. It is worse than the small, but it costs more to downgrade to it, for whatever reason that is. And now getting into the realism versus gameplay double standards, which is still inconsistent. Steel Balalaika still invokes realism for some balanced decisions and gameplay for others, with no consistency. So, the perfect example is the counteractive protection system missiles, right? During the first open beta, when I personally asked the lead developer Felix about caps, Felix told me hard no for gameplay reasons. That made sense, right? If one side gets missiles bypassing APS, it creates an unfair advantage and removes tactical value of investing in active protection. At least it was consistent. Then launch happened, and Russia got the RPG-30 with caps capability, justified by realism. Meanwhile, the US got nothing. No Totu Bravo Arrow, Gen 2 or Gen 3 with the counteractive protection systems. Nothing. So what is it? Is caps excluded for gameplay balance, or is it excluded or included for realism? The answer depends entirely on which faction benefits. When it's the Russian advantage, suddenly realism matters. When it's a US capability, gameplay balance takes priority. This isn't principled game design, it's arbitrary decision making that's consistently favoring one faction. And then this pattern repeats. US IFVs are weak, it's realistic. Russian vehicles are just better. Green Beret should be 12-man ODAs, it's for gameplay balance. Bushmaster cannons do negligible damage, we're balancing for fun, not realism. Cruise missiles can't be reliably intercepted, that's how the networking works. Pick a lane. Either balance around realism and give both factions actual capabilities, including US CAPS missiles, proper squad sizes, accurate weapons performance, or balance around gameplay, and make every faction fun with asymmetric but equivalent power. Don't tell players no caps for gameplay reasons, and then add caps exclusively for Russia because of realism. The inconsistency is maddening and makes balanced decisions makes balanced discussions impossible because goalposts constantly shift. It erodes trust because players can't understand design philosophy, or worse, they understand perfectly and realize decisions aren't principled at all. So where do we go from here? Patch 1.0.11 is a step in the right direction. Acknowledging cruise missile spam, faction imbalance, and implementing easy anti-cheat shows Steel Balalaika is listening, finally. But let's be brutally honest, this should have happened months ago. There were problems that were obvious at launch, the community has been vocal since June, and why did it take 4 months of negative reviews, player exodus, and deteriorating trust to get basic acknowledgement of issues? And the announcement itself is still vague. Reduce prevalence of cruise missiles and reduce win rate discrepancy. Okay, how? And what are the specific changes? The community deserves concrete details before the patches drop, not after. The big event in November showcasing future and longer term plans sounds promising, but the game needs to be fixed now, not with promises in the future. Steel Balalaika needs to communicate transparently and frequently. weekly dev blogs that are actually weekly, patch roadmaps, concrete timelines, and then one dev blog every few weeks with a whoopsie, we forgot, haha, isn't enough. We need to follow through on the cruise missile fixes, increase costs, reduce availability, increase reload times, allow ASFs to intercept cruise missiles with air-to-air missiles, and give players control over AA target priorities. Make intercepted cruise missiles count towards a kill score at a supply cost value. Complete the networking overhaul. Easy anti-cheat is good, but the server-side determinism is necessary to truly prevent exploits. Deliver, replace, and spectator mode. This should have been a launch feature. It's October, and we're still waiting. Fix the basic UI. Make the report button functional in post-match screens. Add maps and single-player content. New maps and rework problematic ones like Kaliningrad. Extract the top portion of Oil Rush into a new map like Oil City, whatever you want to call it. Add robust single-player content with deck building. Implement a Warno-style Army General mode. And then comprehensive balance pass, buff the US IFVs, and fix Bushmaster damage, reduce the Russian 57mm autocannon availability, or increase its cost, remove force pylons, or reduce aircraft costs, add the TOW 2 Bravo Aero Gen 3 for TOW HUMVEEs at a premium cost, fix Rangers and Elite Infantry, give Ranger Mods Flechet rounds, equip Ranger Mod squads with the NGSW platform, significantly buff Rangers as better small, but for SOCOM. Again, the SOCOM should be better at all infantry tasks than any other infantry in the game, point blank, period. Fix the Marines, restore CAT capabilities, reduce price, or give back the Mark 19. Reduce the SRAW price if you're not restoring the top attack, which is fair. That was very, very broken. Just reduce that price down. If you're gonna make it anti-infantry, even though it's an anti-tank, missile, whatever, just reduce the price. Or flip the price. That would make more sense. Fix Special Forces and Airborne, make Green Berets 12-man squads following the ODA structure. SOCOM should have the best infantry. Add soft vehicles, transfer MRAPs, Max Pros, non-standard tactical vehicles. Give Warpig supply carrying capabilities. Buff the Fletcher. Add smoke grenades to transport Humvees. Replace the Hawkeye with ISV mortar systems. Add infantry recon teams to Airborne, Lurs or Airborne recon. Add the F-35A beast mode to Airborne. Add the MV-75 Valor to Airborne. Give Strikers the ICV A1s. And make sure that the Stryker MML can ripple fire. Establish consistent design philosophy. Decide realism or gameplay and stick to it. If caps is excluded for gameplay, keep it excluded for both sides. If caps is included for realism, give both factions actual capabilities. This game launched with 30,000 concurrent players and real momentum. That goodwill has evaporated. Steam reviews tell a story. What started positive has turned increasingly negative with each botch patch. Patch 1.0.11 is progress, but one patch doesn't erase 4 months of neglect. The big event in November better deliver substance and not just more promises. Broken Arrow can still be great, but only if the developers maintain communication, follow through on commitments, and treat the community as partners rather than as problems to manage. The clock is ticking. Our patience isn't infinite. Patch 1.0.11 is a start. Now prove it's not too little, too late. I'm LD. I'll see you next time. Scratch that, Mr. Editor.